One might suggest then that Mark attests to an early tendency in Christian thought that saw Jesus' sonship as equating his election. Election here means to be anointed by God. The Gospel of Mark, therefore, seems to have no interest in the motif of Jesus' miraculous birth. Other early Christian writings, like the Gospel of John or the whole corpus of Pauline epistles, did not relate to Jesus' miraculous birth either. However, when Jesus' potential kingly or priestly status become central in Matthew and Luke, the genealogy and actual birth come to the forefront too. Characteristically, both Matthew and Luke ascribe the action of the Holy Spirit, which is Mark, was granted in the scene of Jesus' baptism, already to Mary's impregnation. The astounding chain of events is outlined with reference to biblical precedents. Thus, in Matthew, where Jesus in the opening line is called not only Son of David, but also Son of Abraham, the reference is clearly made to the miraculous birth of Abraham's son Isaac. If you read the account in Genesis, you will see that Torah explicitly describes Sarah's pregnancy as impossible physiologically, and made possible only thanks to God's miraculous intervention, with the role of Abraham remaining uncertain. Because, as unambiguously stated in Genesis 18:11, now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age. It had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. There are other instances in the Hebrew Bible where the birth of an important protagonist is described in terms of miraculous intervention from above. Moreover, it seems that the motif was rather popular, at least in some Jewish circles. The indirect evidence of that may be seen, for example, in a later rabbinic exegetical compendium called Genesis Rabbah, where it is discussed why God says in the Torah, Genesis 1:26, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness," using first-person plural. This is the answer Rabbi Simlai offers in that passage. In the case of the first couple, Adam was created from the dust of the earth, and Eve from Adam. But since then, three partners take part in every impregnation. The man needs a woman, the woman needs a man, and they both need God's presence. Some researchers see here in Genesis Rabbah an implicit polemic with the Christian narrative. If so, this polemic does not deny the high value of the tradition speaking of God's intervention in pregnancy, but claims polemically that with us, Jews, this pertains to each newborn, not only as with you to the Messiah. I believe that the biblical traditions of miraculous birth, as well as later rabbinic echoes of the motif, where human and divine factors are brought together, can explain why Matthew does not seem to think that the story of Mary's marvelous impregnation contradicts his claim for Jesus' Davidic lineage through Joseph. Later on, Matthew also refers to a prophecy of Isaiah, which speaks of a sign that will be given by God. Isaiah 7:14, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, a young woman shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel." Matthew seems to follow here one of existing Jewish interpretations, namely that the sign is somehow connected to the circumstances of the future charismatic figure's birth. It deserves notice that like in Matthew, like in Mark, Jesus receives the designation Son of God in relation to him receiving the gift of the Spirit, and not in relation to the circumstances of his birth. Luke adds one more explanation, suggesting that it is the link to Adam, who had no human parents, but was, so to say, God's creation and child, which transfers the appellation to his descendant Jesus. Again, it's not derived from the outstanding nature of Mary's pregnancy. On the other hand, the developments in the synoptic tradition, attested in Matthew and Luke, with the Spirit active even at Jesus' conception in his mother's womb, already contains a potential for later thinking of the meaning of Jesus' sonship as, quote-unquote, birth from or by God, end of quote.